Hi, welcome to the Secret Cellar podcast, here live in the green room at the Secret Cellar. We have our guest today. He's an award-winning fringe performer, as well as one of the owners here at the Secret Cellar, and my good friend. Please let me introduce Dan Zerin. Dan, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
I feel like I'm being attacked by one of the ferns we're in between.
In between two ferns. We're already ripping off another podcast.
Hey, you got to start strong.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this feels more like a jungle, I guess.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It kind of feels like how I would decorate my house if I was just like an old single guy and I kept the heat up really high and I just sat around in a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm kind of worried about some of the comedians we have trying to smoke all this, but you know.
Yeah. Because they like smoking plastic.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's where I was getting.
They're pro oil.
Yeah,
comedians.
pro oil.
Famously pro oil.
Surprisingly against drugs, but you know they're very pro oil.
Yeah, I'm against drugs too. I think they're the worst. But I think before we get started, I have to introduce you a little bit further.
Go ahead.
You're also the creator of My Voices Have Tourettes, a regular show here at the Secret Cellar on Thursdays, and it's been touring around the world. And you've been doing corporate shows here, and you've been talking to students in schools. Tell us a little bit. What is My Voices Have Tourettes?
Well, my Voices Have Tourettes is a show I created with two of my friends to raise awareness for mental health and neurological disorders in a fun way, you know, because I just trying to figure out how to do it without being boring about it. Because I mean, no one really knows much about this stuff, and whenever people try to talk about it, all they talk about is what they hear in Hollywood, you know.
Yeah.
So it becomes kind of confusing. So we just.
But you have Tourette's.
Oh, I definitely do. I'm not just going through puberty at age 31. I did use some WD-40 today, not working. But no, I did. It basically started me and Elvedug. We wanted to do she has Tourette's also, and we wanted.
Who's Elvedug?
Elvedug is a comedian here in Iceland. She's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life, and she's great, she has Tourette's, and was actually my biggest inspiration to talk about Tourette's.
Yeah,
because I didn't know anyone else was trying to talk about it in comedy. And then I saw her performing one night and just decided to be as open as possible about it. And when I came up with the idea for the show, it was originally to do it with her to raise awareness just for Tourette syndrome. And then we decided very, very quickly after that to ask Hannah Bailey, who has schizophrenia, and also a tremendously hilarious performer. Because we wanted to get some kind of neurodiversity going on.
Neurodiversity, nice.
In the show.
People worry about just plain diversity in comedy. You're worried about neurodiversity.
Oh yeah. It's a mindset. But yeah. So we tried to change it up from just being about one thing, and then that kind of pushed us to talk about OCD as well, and ADD and stuff like that, and. It was actually intended to just be 3 shows for the Fringe Festival. Yeah. And then when we got like an article written about us after the first night we performed it, and we thought, all right, well, I guess we should do something after this.
Yeah.
And
ride the wave.
Exactly. And then it became a weekly show, and we were thinking, all right, well, you know, it'll be a weekly show. I don't know how much else we'll do with it. And then we started getting people asking us to perform at their schools, talking at the schools. And we started realizing that there was so much we could do with this to help people. Yeah. And I mean, ever since then, it's just, I mean, we just got back the other week from Akureyri. Yeah. To do a show out there. And it was
Akureyri is up north. There's two cities in Iceland.
There's 2 cities. Yeah, we don't count Grindavik. No. People from Grindavik don't even count it. Well, maybe they do. I don't know.
I think, wasn't Grindavik, it was actually voted the happiest place on earth at one point. I think they have like the highest medium like wealth or income, but one of the lower averages of
because there's 2 people there.
Yeah. 2 really rich, stupid
2
people.
Really rich, stupid people. Yeah, exactly.
They get the happiness of stupidity and the happiness of richness together. And it's just glorious.
They basically just live in the Blue Lagoon.
Yeah.
Just that's where the white coloring comes from. But yeah, and it's been going strong ever since, and we've got so many more things we want to do with it, and we're going to San Diego next summer.
Okay. Yeah, and what are you doing in San Diego?
So we one of the last awards that we won for the show was called the San Diego Exchange Award.
Okay.
So Reykjavik is sending us to San Diego to perform in the Fringe, and then San Diego is sending a show here to perform.
Okay, so it's like like a kind of like a swap, or what is that called? An exchange program.
An exchange program. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we're looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like when you were a kid, and if you went into an exchange program, you had like some foreign person who'd come over and you'd ask them questions like, "What do you guys eat in Germany?" And they'd tell you like, "Well, we eat strudel."
Exactly.
What are you going to do with this? Like, do they bring people over from San Diego with different neurological disorders?
No. Well, they are probably nuts, but
They're in comedy.
Well, I've been to San Diego. Everyone's nuts there.
Yeah,
But
that's where that guy jerked off.
what's that?
The guy who did like Coney 2012. Remember, he wanted to like catch Coney, the guy who had all those child soldiers, and he had this big like a Facebook viral thing where it was this video, and then he got so like nuts about his he went crazy and
He literally went nuts.
Yeah, he stripped off his clothes and started jerking off in the street, and he was filmed. And
Wow.
yeah, I think like South Park's joked about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you didn't know about San Diego's most famous masturbatory. Okay,
No, guess not.
so now you know you can't.
Now I know I can't jerk off in the streets in San Diego.
Everyone's gonna be like, "We saw that bit already."
There's gonna be a Rick and Morty episode after that, and they're gonna be like, South Park already did it.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the, I guess, when people think of Tourette's, especially with comedy, it is like historically in comedy, it's been a one note type thing where it's always just like, "Oh, I wish I had Tourette's because then I could be in like a line up at the grocery store and be like, fuck, shit, balls." But how do you mine it so that it's not only like funny, but it's also kind of giving more of a truthful portrayal of the disorder?
Well, it's fun. It's actually funny you brought that up because I had a couple people here the other night who were like, "Oh, we love," like they saw the name on the board and they were just like, "Oh, we love Tourette's. It's our favorite disability." And I'm like, this is going to be an interesting conversation. All right. So, and then they were like, "Yeah, we love this show in the UK. It's called Undateable." And it's like, people with disabilities, it's like a dating show for them. And then they were talking about, the Tourette's is our favorite one, where they're just like, "Oh, fuck, shit, damn." And I'm in my head, I'm going, am I awake enough to deal with this right now? I don't know about this one, but it's kind of going to be fun when they come to the show and realize that we don't do that.
Yeah, it's not everyone has these verbal tics.
Well, that's the thing. So that tic is called coprolalia, and which the word comes from shit talking.
Yeah,
and
like
it's
corpophilia, which is like when you like poop.
Yeah,
sexually.
Well,
yeah,
that's a whole other level of that kind of.
That was just a Latin joke.
Yeah.
But suffix joke.
It's so it's actually a very small percentage of people have that tick, but like my friend Meccan used to say, it's the fun kind.
Yeah.
So that's why people go for it. And but what we like to do about in the show is talk about, like, we just kind of mention all the ticks that we have and try to talk about like how we viewed them in an optimistic way. Mm-hmm. So like for me, having my hand shaking a lot, which is one of the ticks that I have. So I was I tried to figure out, this is something that people don't really think about that in terms of Tourette's. But as soon as I talk about it, then people are like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense because it's involuntary. You're not trying to do it." And but then the moment I talk about it, it makes you realize that it's like, oh, well, I mean, when my hand is shaking, how do you think of that in a positive way? Because when my hand started shaking originally, I was like, fuck, I'm not even 30 and I'm getting Parkinson's.
Right.
That I was terrified.
Yeah. And Parkinson's is worse than Tourette's in the disorder like hierarchy.
It's so weird to do that. Well, like, which one is worse? Yeah. Which is like if you've got two things that are bad, which one is worse and which one do we care about more?
Right. It'd be because it's because they did that with like feminism and racism. They have intersectionality where you try and rate things in a certain hierarchy to understand who's the most oppressed.
Yeah.
I think they're ever going to do that with disorders, so they can be like, no. We've got someone with Parkinson's and ADD. That's the worst mixture.
Yeah, well, I think ADD they just wouldn't show up to the meeting, but they'd forget. But yeah, no, it does happen. I mean, I've had people. When I got diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, the neurologist that diagnosed me he actually was very honest and said, to be honest, I don't know anything about Tourette syndrome. I know that you have it.
Yeah,
it's kind of obvious, but like, I can't tell you what to do about it because no one really knows anything about it. And that was kind of that moment where I realized that that if I was going to learn about it, I had to kind of learn on my own.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I mean, I've everything I know about Tourette syndrome is basically from people that have it.
Yeah.
I don't know anything from medical doctors or, people in that industry. I just know that like everything I've learned has been from talking to people. I mean, I've talked to people with Tourette syndrome, and I talked about like mental tics that I have.
Yeah.
They go, what? Oh, that makes sense. That's what I have too.
Okay. What's a mental tic?
So a mental tic is it's basically like I get like glitches in my like when I'm dreaming or when I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I get glitches. So like I'll
when you're dreaming as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like I'll like if I'm picturing something in my head. Like my therapist used to say to me, she's like, I want you to picture like a meeting room. We're going to talk to different parts of your mind. And so I was like, all right. And she'd be like, all right, so who's walking into the door? And I'm like, I don't know. They keep walking in, and then it glitches and they're back at the door. And then they walk in and they're back at the door. It just glitches over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it is for me. Like I used to have a thing that I would talk about where like in my dreams, when I'm dreaming in third person, my arm starts here and then glitches and it's to the side.
Yeah.
And it's just over and over again.
So your dreams become like lagging. Like even when you imagine stuff, it just like skips around and you're like, oh, this isn't working.
Yeah. It's
like having bad Wi-Fi in your mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's yeah. Cause I thought I glitched out every once in a while. I feel like I glitch out.
Yeah.
Like something will upset me or, it won't be just right. And you'll just be, and all of a sudden you can't move on. But
exactly.
No, I've never had my dreams or thoughts stop and start again like they're skipping on a record player.
Yeah, exactly. And but that's something that people don't think about. No, and another one that people don't think about when it comes to tics is internal tics.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I have one that's like inside my ears. Where like if you were to feel like here on my head, you would feel it, but no, it's not visible. And like so a lot of times with Tourette syndrome, a lot of people think that it's all visual or it's all auditory, so they get confused when they don't hear or see you do anything. And that's why I've tended to say to people that Tourette's kind of feels like being a baby in the womb. I'm not always ticking, but people get confused by that.
Yeah. Okay. So and I know when you start, like I knew you when you were starting doing stand up here, and you were performing, and you seemed to be like there was a lot of anxiety and struggle around it when you began. And at first, you were always suppressing your tics, and you've talked about this before. But can you tell me what was it like when you kind of like you were suppressing your tics and then trying to perform on stage? Because you weren't doing any jokes about Tourette syndrome at first. It was just like jokes from your life, jokes from your relationships, things like that. But you could tell there was something going on.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, there are still there's one tic that I do still suppress. Yeah. That's the squeak. Yeah. But sometimes it becomes harder to not suppress it when I'm talking on podcasts to people I don't like.
Well, no one likes me. That's fair.
No, okay. But no, it was weird. I mean, because I spent most of my life trying to hide them, so it caused so much neck pain from all of the muscle tension. Okay. And then when I got on stage, I mean, I remember when I first started, it was kind of like battling remembering my jokes and trying to hide my tics. Yeah. So it would be kind of a struggle, not just to make people laugh, but to make myself comfortable. Mm-hmm. And but then when I started talking about it, and I started realizing that when you're on stage, no one really gives a fuck about who you are. Yeah. I mean, they really don't. Yeah. It's about what you're talking about and how you're saying everything. Right. So when I squeak on stage, I hear people giggling, and now I'm at the point where I'm just like, okay, well, it's like when Steve Martin used to put baloney in his shoes just to feel funny walking on stage. Yeah, yeah. I've got this. I've got this. I just squeak and people start laughing. Yeah, yeah. So I don't even have to try to write my jokes. I can just squeak and people will laugh and I'll have done my job, I guess. Yeah, but, yeah. Of course I don't, I try to do more than that. But
yeah, we would hope.
Not successfully, but it's, but yeah, it was kind of liberating being able to go on stage and just entirely be myself. Well, regardless of how I am afterward, I can just go on stage and just be myself and not have to worry about what people think, because at the end of the day, I try my best to make them laugh. Yeah. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I get them the next time. Yeah. Yeah.
And how is that? And like, how is that for cultivating an audience? Because when you have a show when you just go on and it's a regular comedy show, you kind of have to come on and go, hey guys, I have Tourette's, and introduce it into the show, and it kind of encompasses the act. But when you have this freedom where they know this coming in, like one of your My Voices Have Tourettes show, what type of audiences are coming?
Well, that's the interesting thing. I mean, I found that when I perform in voices, I don't have to worry about explaining it because people just understand the vibe. But when I perform in regular nights, it's actually kind of tough sometimes because I used to get people every once in a while that would come up to me and ask how long I've been faking Tourette's.
Yeah.
I'm like, of all the things I could fake,
yeah.
Why would I fake a squeaky voice? That doesn't make
hilarious.
sense. Well, yeah, it is hilarious, but at the same time, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel like, when I do the regular nights, I have to be careful about how I get into having Tourette's because otherwise people get exhausted by it so quickly because they don't understand it.
Right.
So
because it comes on almost like a gimmick and they're like, when is this going to stop?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I had for a while, I was kind of struggling because I would go straight into, I have Tourette syndrome and then go straight into it. And then people would be like, what? Wait, what? Are we allowed to laugh? Is this okay?
Yeah.
But then I found out, then I started doing a bit in the beginning of my sets where it just kind of eases people into it.
Yeah.
Well, like I just kind of, give off a lot of energy and then I high five someone and talk about Tourette's being contagious.
Yeah.
And then that person always goes, oh, fuck, why did I do that? but then everyone gets with me. And when I talk then about having Tourette syndrome, they're just like, oh, it's actually kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But I do get a lot more leeway on voices. Well, I feel like there's a lot more I can talk about that I can't talk about I couldn't talk about suicide in a regular stand-up night, but if I talk about it in voices, it's that kind of vibe. Yeah.
And then you can kind of like, they know that this is about overcoming a struggle. So you can kind of go into more of a one-man show type of performance.
Yeah.
But do you find like, because now, like I said before, you started where you weren't expressing yourself. And now this has become not just part of who you are, but it's part of your performing identity. It's a part of your brand, as they would say today. Like, everyone has a brand. So does that make it more like, does that affect you more that you're constantly thinking about your disorder because it's a part of everything you do?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting how when I get really nervous or when I get really stressed or stuff like that, it comes out a lot more. And it's funny because like people have asked me, they're like, when did you stop being nervous on stage? And I'm like, never.
Yeah.
I'm still nervous on stage.
Yeah.
That's why I like in interviews and on stage, I do, my voice cracks a lot more and it's not intentional, but it's because of the nerves, but I have found that from talking about it so much and being so comfortable with it, there's actually a good amount of times during the day that it actually slows down. Okay. I mean, I don't remember the last time I ever had a day that I didn't have any tics at all.
Yeah.
But from being so open about it, I have found that it slows down at times of the day.
Yeah.
And it mostly just becomes easier to be okay with it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for me. And that's why, with the identity of being a Tourette comedian, essentially, is that for me, it's kind of the addiction of helping people. I originally got into stand-up just to make people smile. Yeah. That was kind of all. But once I started getting comedy people with Tourette syndrome coming up to me afterward going, this is the first time I've ever felt normal in public.
Right.
That's something that I realized how powerful stand-up could be.
Right.
No, that's actually why it it doesn't irritate me too much, but it kind of irritates me sometimes when people talk about PC culture and comedy and like, well, if we can't be on PC, what can we talk about? It's like, there's so many things you can talk about. It's just, it's why you're doing comedy. It's about, what is the point of doing comedy if you're so worried about what you are and aren't allowed to talk about?
Right.
I can talk about like Tourette syndrome is something that no one's talking about because no one knows what it is.
Right.
So it's something that I can talk about. And then people that have it relate so much. And even people that don't have it, well, like David, talking about alcoholism, when I mentioned suppression.
David is also one of the owners. He was on an earlier podcast. He's the guy with the tattoos. Keep going.
Yeah, he's the guy that breaks stuff. That's why I don't have a pair of headphones on.
Yeah.
But no, he just looked at them and they broke. But no, I talked to him about suppression, and then he came to me and he said actually that like he related so heavy to that because when he was, drinking so much, he said that was his suppression. He was suppressing so much with alcohol.
Right.
He just didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
And it's and that's the thing, that comedy can have such a powerful effect on people and they don't even realize it.
Yeah. And so because obviously when you do your show and you can talk about these harder issues, then you talk about the toll of having this disorder. Like you get into things like suicide and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What happens when you kind of open yourself up on stage? It's very popular now. You have people like Hannah Gadsby, who she brought in the idea of relating trauma to comedy and how it affects you and why you do what you do. And are you making the right choices?
I actually almost quit comedy after watching her special.
Really?
Yeah. Cause she had a comment in it about how like comedy has become so like degrading to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's always like everyone gets started by putting themselves down. And
right.
I started looking at everything that I've done in comedy and I'm like, well, I mean, is that what I'm doing? Am I just degrading myself? Am I just humiliating myself? But, and I actually had that thought of, I mean, I don't know if I should be doing this.
Right.
I don't know if I'm putting off the right message to people by doing this.
Right.
But then I realized that look, I didn't want to quit. Because I mean, I don't view it as degrading.
Right.
I mean, there are things that I talk about that is just like, oh, it sounds like it's in that direction, but it's more of me trying to figure out how to cope with it than how to just putting myself down. I mean, even me talking about how I, like I describe myself as looking like a contestant on America's Next Top Serial Killer.
Right.
That came from so many things that my mom has said, that people's grandparents have said.
I can imagine your mom is like, cut your hair.
My mom at one point was like, you should cut your hair. You're not going to get a job. And I'm like, well, the joke's on you. I have a job.
Yeah.
But no.
I'm a serial killer.
Yeah. Hey, it's tough work, literally tough work. You got to get through the bones, I just felt like that style of humor. I viewed it more as uplifting rather than putting it down.
Yeah. I never I always think this is probably just a point of privilege or something with myself. I've never understood when they say like degrading humor or whatever, self-deprecating is so bad. I'm like, we're all dying. We're all just humans. Being self-deprecating is, to me, is an acknowledgement that we're all in it together. It's like, it almost feels like a socialist thing to be like, hey guys, this is what we're stuck with. Yeah. We're in this like meat prison until we just expire and we might as well laugh about it. And the idea of thinking we deserve more than that, I always find it like, I'm like, who deserves anything? Like, you never know what you're going to get. Most of the stuff you get is by luck. Like most of your successes are luck of genes or luck of birth, like where you're born and who like what type of family you have and stuff like that. And you can't change that really. Like you can move little bits up and down, but I've always thought self-deprecating humor was like an acknowledgement to the human condition. So I didn't really relate to it. So I know what you mean though, but it makes you, I know when I heard that, I was like, is it bad to constantly make fun of yourself? And then I looked in the mirror and was like, no, I need to do this.
Because it was a good point. I mean, it was a very good point. But I also realized though, I mean, if you look at what comedy is, I mean, comedy in the grand scheme of things, at least a majority of it, and I think there's a good reason for it. It is, pointing out the negatives of a lot of things. It kind of is showing like, oh yeah, we thought this was really good, but I mean, is it though? Yeah. Is it? I think that's why people talk so much about controversial topics, right? Because they're pointing out the flaws in them. They're pointing out the flaws, and it's not just to say, oh, this system is flawed. It's to go, this system is flawed. Let's rethink how we're viewing it.
Yeah. And it's, because any taboo subject, it seems very extreme when you do a shallow scoop. Like when you just go like, oh, this is extreme. But when you look at any human problem, it seems like the deeper you go, the more absurd that we're worried about it is. Like we're on a rock hurtling through space, and there's people who care about, whether two guys kiss each other. Like that was like a big deal for the last 50 years, where people are like, whoa, dudes are kissing each other. And this is there's a climate, like we have climate change, the world's ending, we have dictators, but no, we have to worry about boys smooching each other.
Well, wasn't it global cooling, and now it's global warming?
It's climate change.
Like in the 70s and 80s, it was global cooling. They were worried we're going into like an ice age.
Yeah, they were worried we'd go into another ice. They don't know, because we don't really know anything about it. because we don't know anything. Everything we think we know, we find out a couple of years later, we weren't exactly right. Well, whatever.
And then someone goes, well, I mean, that's not how it was in the Bible. So, I mean, is it really accurate?
Yeah. Because isn't that where all comedy kind of starts, is because the Bible is a big authority, and all comedy is kind of like you said, a negative. It's kind of like, don't be so careful with your authority. This can't be true. And I think that's why there's a pushback on anything that is too righteous or too like, this is a fact. Comedians always go like, is it a fact? Because this looks ridiculous. Yeah. And it seems like comedians always are switching on which side they're on. Like when you have people like the Christian right that are very anti-gay, and comedians are coming along making fun of them, everyone's like, hey, that's good. But then when you make fun of the other side, like people being too, social justice warrior type stuff, and people make fun of it just to point out the ridiculousness, that's when people that's when people go like, hey, if you're not on my side, then I don't want you. Because they seem to only want comedians when they're feeding meat to the lions. But as soon as you're questioning someone else, like someone's beliefs, then you're dead.
Well, I think that's the problem. I mean, people think that this problem has just been in the last like 10 years, but it's been, I mean, people being against comedy has been around for a long time.
Of course.
I mean, but
no one likes to be laughed at, but everyone likes to laugh at people.
Yeah, I do think that's definitely true. But I mean, it's the kind of thing where like, I mean, I had a joke I haven't done in a long time, but it was about the way that people react today. Yeah. Because it used to be when you do a debate, it was like one person says their position, the other person says their position, and then they debate it. You know? But now it's like the one person says their position, the other one answers very, very much against it, and the moderator goes, all right, guys, everyone's entitled to their own opinions. Yeah. Like that's not the point of a debate. That's not why we're doing this.
And do you find this, because this comes back just to your like what you're doing when you're dealing with mental health and neurological disorders, like word choice. Like if you think about when you talk about taboo subjects such as like when men talk about women on stage and they use derogatory language and stuff like that, word choice matters. Like if you say bitch or cunt on stage, people will complain sometimes afterwards and be like, I don't like that sort of language. Is there any sort of like, when it comes to dealing with these mental illness and neurological things, is it the way you do it, even if you're doing it and you're obviously supporting it, do you ever get any pushback where they're like, hey, you shouldn't use this word, you shouldn't use that word? Is there like a list of ways you shouldn't speak that people are worried about?
Occasionally. I mean, I notice mostly, when it comes to mental health and neurological stuff, the thing that I notice very much so is I notice that the biggest issue that we have is that the people that are getting the loudest voices are not the people with the disorders or the syndromes. Right. They're it's the parents, the families, the friends. And because they're the ones that are just scared. We're terrified, but they're the ones that are just scared because they're like, what's wrong with you? What is this that you have that needs to be fixed? It's all about a fix. It's all about a cure, when that's not really what it should be about. Right. And so like, for example, a lot of the Tourette organizations are not run by people with Tourette's. Right. They're run by parents and families and stuff like that.
Who are kind of embarrassed and also just like very empathetic because they love the person and they want to protect them. It's like a big brother syndrome. Almost.
Well, like, a better example of this is Autism Speaks. Yeah. Autism Speaks is notorious for being anti-autistic people. Right. Because the thing about what they do is like with their big puzzle piece thing, that was basically saying that autism is a problem that needs to be solved. Right. But it's not. It's just something that needs to be understood. Something that needs to be accepted. And it's wording like that is the stuff that we get in trouble with. Mm-hmm. And it's not, but I don't view that as a problem. Right. I mean, there's of every word usage or something like that I've ever had an issue with, it's actually like when someone said, is the difference between saying that someone suffers from something and saying that they live with something. Right. I think both are appropriate, but a lot of people today say that it's only living. It's not suffering. Right. But that's not true. I mean, I suffered for a very long time to the point where I had suicidal thoughts every minute of every day. Right. That's not living. No. That's just hoping for it to end. So the way I often describe it is that when you deal with this stuff, it's important to recognize the suffering. Yeah. But it's also important to get to the living portion of it. Mm-hmm. So once you get past the suffering and you like, I'm at the point where, yes, I do struggle every once in a while still, but I tend to say that I'm living with it now. I don't say I'm suffering from it because it doesn't bother me anymore. Right. But 10 years, even 5 years ago, if someone were to say, oh, don't worry, you're just living with Tourette's, I'd be like, no, no, I just want it to end, you know?
Right.
So those are the things where it gets into heated arguments, and that's where the issues come in, you know?
And okay, but then now that this is a big part of your life and you're helping people, and it is kind of what you're doing, it's a big part of your enterprise. If you were given the option, if someone said they could wave a magic wand and you would no longer have Tourette's, would you always choose that, or would you stick with it so you could continue your fight?
No, I wouldn't have any stand-up material.
You gotta stick with it now,
dude. If I got rid of Tourette syndrome and cut my hair, I'd literally have nothing. I would literally just be sitting in bed going, well, I mean, I just don't know if I can afford to get out of bed, but I have nothing to talk about. No.
Yeah, the only when it comes to this, like you said, accepting it and living with it, the only way I can relate to it, because I don't have a disorder. Well, I probably do, but I don't have I don't have a disorder where I meet in a group or anything, even though I've been asked to do that. You have when you're younger and there's the older kids. Do you know this kind of and then you know that you don't really fit in with them when they don't really speak to you, and they always speak to you as a kid for a while, but as soon as they start making fun of you too, as soon as you get to be one of the people that's joked on and you get to be a part of the group, that's when you feel this camaraderie. Do you feel that there's something about that, when you go in with the regular comedians, if they're not making fun of you and they're not it's not just hey, you're just one of us and we can joke around just like another person, if they walk on eggshells around you, does that make it feel is it worse, or would you rather they were just kind and avoided making fun of you? Yeah,
I have the perspective of, as long as someone's good intentioned, I'm fine with it. I've said to people, I mean, go ahead, make your Tourette jokes. I've had traveling comedians come up to me, be like, hey, I've got a Tourette joke. Can I try it out on you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And it's always a Copperlelia joke, always. Yeah. But at the same time, when fuck shit. But then I go around the comedians, and they're all just like, hey, Dan, how's it going? Yeah. I'm like, it gets old, but I know they mean well, so it doesn't bother me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also something that we've learned within the Voices family that we have. You know, Elva and I are always making fun of each other's tics. Always. Yeah. She's got a tic lately where she goes, and I'm like, Elva, are you just not interested in anything we're ever saying? It's just like, hey, you guys want to go to the store? and then she turns around and talks about my tics, and it's just all in good fun, with Hans, talking about the stuttering. When
Hans is a comedian who stutters.
Yeah, we've had. I've had times where I've introduced him on stage by or introduce him off a stage, but where I talk about his stutter, and then I hear from the audience and I'm like, oh, come on, he loves it, and he's in the back going, I really do.
Yeah. And that's interesting, because that sort of dynamic where you learn to accept yourself. That seems like a very positive message, that it doesn't have to be about protecting yourself against the world, but accepting yourself so you can be a part of the world. Is that something that you do? Because you're going you're talking to classes around. What do you do when you talk to younger kids? What's the message?
Well, we don't typically talk to younger kids,
but like teenagers.
Typically what we do is we perform 5-10 minutes each, and then we have a 30 to 40 minute Q&A session.
Yeah.
So people can ask us whatever they want to ask us, and we just answer it. But I was actually going to say, though, there's another comedian with Tourette syndrome who's actually become quite big, Samuel Comroe. He was a finalist in America's Got Talent, and he had a post, and I've seen this joke before, but it is true. So he said when he was a kid, he got bullied all the time, and now he gets paid to say the exact same things that the bullies said. Yeah. But it's just take that. Now it's my turn.
Yeah. You gotta turn the sword on them.
But and that is something I've often wondered, the question of if you had a time machine, what would you do with it? I'd just go back and comment back. Yeah. I just wait and go back to the times where I got picked on. Yeah. And then have something that I could have said to them.
Yeah. But if you were picked on, do you feel that being picked on, because you're a very talented guitar player. You've worked as a performer and a musician. You went to school for musical performance and marketing. Do you think you would have done the same stuff? Because a lot of comedians have some sort of story. Some comedians have the story of being a bully, and other comedians have the story of being bullied. But if you didn't have this kind of push in your life where you had to deal with people or respond to people, do you think you would have became a performer?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I definitely would be talking about different things.
Yeah.
But,
Sometimes I talk to like a doctor or a lawyer, like a person who's really like their life was a perfect trajectory and they didn't have any like failings or anything like that. And the idea of becoming a stand-up comedian, they're just like, why would I do that?
Well,
I have no desire to entertain drunk people in a bar.
That
My
goes,
life is great.
That goes into a very, very controversial topic that I've always been fascinated by, but people don't typically like to have this conversation because I mean, we all agree and disagree with the same things.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of if a person is never bullied in their life ever, like if they just live their lives and they're never picked on, never pushed down, how do they learn how to stand up for themselves? And then there's the question of like it's kind of that question of like, should kids be or not be bullied?
Right.
Obviously not. Obviously,
you don't want pathological bullying.
No, of course. But it is I've always had that question of if we get rid of bullying, which would be amazing, how are we going to replace it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By like, how are we going to teach kids to stand up for themselves without like being like, you're a little shit, you suck, knocking the books out of their hands, you know, or, you know, like stealing, you know, the girl that they love or whatever, you know,
but isn't it
stealing the girl
isn't
that
like
they
the
love.
word bully is a little bit of a
archaic way of putting it.
like concept creep. Like we call everything bullying now because we feel like, especially like parents or something like that, you have to step in and stop stuff right away because you don't want it to get, you know, into bullying, like what we consider bullying in the sense of it being repetitive, constant mental torture or physical torture by another person. But at the beginning, it's just conflict. And there seems to be a fear of conflict now with kids. Maybe the idea is just letting kids sort out their own conflict and only stepping in if it becomes too much. But it seems like a lot of people have this like, no tolerance policy. Like any form of conflict is bad always, but maybe you're saying it's good. Do you think?
Well, that's where it comes into like, you know, what is the right thing to say? Because there isn't a right thing to say on this topic. You know, I mean, you can't say that kids should be bullied because that's just horrible.
But if the definition of bullying was like pathological torture by someone, I'm against it 100%. But if it's just any conflict, then I do think kids should have to deal with.
I mean, everyone
bullying.
should deal with conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, and also there was an interesting point that was made to me at one point was I more bullied by other people or was I bullied by myself? Because I did most of the bullying to myself. I mean, I've just always had like it's. Like I kind of describe myself as having two personalities. I've got like the side of me that's me, and then I've got the inside of me, whether it's from Tourette's or whatever, that just always puts thoughts in my head that I don't actually have. Yeah. So I would always like I grew up under the understanding that I sucked at everything, and that I had to push myself to be better than everyone just because everyone was better than me. Right. And I mean, to be honest, at this point in my life, I still feel everyone's better than me. Right. Which is why I push so hard. Right. And that's also why I tend to do way more than I actually have the capacity to do. Right. Because I feel that like when I go on stage and I see someone do a great set, and then I do a great set, I still think theirs was better. Right. And I think that's good. It's good because it pushes you in the right direction, but it's bad because no one should have to deal with that. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's why I feel like the best thing in life is to find something that does challenge you. Mm-hmm. It does challenge you to think of like, if you're in these situations, how are you going to deal with it? But not being so forceful that it actually could completely screw up everything about you. Yeah. Yeah. And you have to be able to kind of fight back in any given moment. Because I think I've said that to comedians here, is that we're all friends and I support you and I want you to do well. But every time I go on stage, I want to do better than all of you. Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's how you should be. Yeah. So you should feel. And that's kind of, and I like it where if someone does even sort of good, like a writer I like, this is going to sound pretentious, which I like being once in a while. He said, like, every time a friend of his succeeds, a little part of him dies. Yeah. And I like that attitude a little bit. Like I don't like it in full. Like I don't want it to not be able to be, you know, congratulatory to my friends when they succeed. But I like the idea that, like, I guess it's one of the 10 commandments not to covet your neighbor's ox or wife.
ox
Or
and wife,
career.
or career. It's the same thing. You're not supposed to covet, but I think coveting is the thing that pushes me to go further. It's like, no, I want this to be better. I want a better ox. I want a better wife.
A little bit of, I mean, to a certain extent, competition is what we need. We need competition. I mean, I always pride myself in saying that what we have here in Reykjavik, with the camaraderie, it's so unique. It's so special. I did an open mic in Chicago, where none of the comedians talked to each other. And I went to the host. He didn't even look up from his paper. He just went name and then said, all right, you're getting bumped.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just horrible. I felt like I didn't matter at all. And then I didn't even try on stage because I didn't have any motivation to do it. Yeah. But here it's like, I mean, we're all competitive, but we care.
Yeah, we care.
So
but it still makes it more dramatic because now it's like I'm your friend, but I hate you.
Yeah, right. I'm your friend, but I really want you to bomb so that I have a good set.
And can I borrow your car tomorrow?
Exactly.
Because you can't afford a car in Reykjavik.
No, you can't afford anything in this town.
That actually brings up another a point that we brought up right at the beginning of the podcast is that you're one of the owners.
I am.
And you're from America. You're from the States. You're originally from Michigan.
Sure.
Are you?
Well, I don't know. I like keeping it a secret because it's fun.
Okay.
But I lived in Michigan for a long time.
Okay. You're from somewhere in the States.
I'm from Canada Light.
Canada Light. Yeah. Michigan is Canada Light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, we love red green there. So
red green's the best.
He fixes everything,
And he also notoriously means bad. He famously was a great person if you were hired by him. He always made sure everyone was paid properly. He's a real stand-up guy.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I like him.
I just want to get him to come down to the cellar, like take a look at everything, and he'd just be like, well, you just need more duct tape over here. I mean, this part is just falling apart. You just need to put that duct tape on there and it'll just hold together forever.
Oh yeah. Jeez, I love red green. I wish they were still
I know, right?
Oh,
yeah.
You came here.
Yeah.
When you were bartending at Lebowski. And we used to have shows at Lebowski Bar. Lebowski Bar, by the way, is a bar in Reykjavik where it's a big Lebowski theme. And I don't believe they have the right to have it, but whatever, they're going for it.
No comment.
They're just one Cohen family vacation away from losing that bar. People walk in, I never licensed this.
I just really want to stress again. No comment.
Yeah. But all of this, like you came here, like similar to myself, you were married to an Icelander.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. I was too. And then anyway, moving on. and then now you're how did you get involved in being a comedy club owner?
Well,
because you were My Voices Have Tourettes started after
so I was actually talking to two of my friends about opening up a comedy club before the Secret Cellar. We'd been talking for about 4 to 6 months about it. And I was at the point where I was actually close to talking to an investor to get the whole thing started. But everything
you have to be a crazy fucking investor.
I know, right?
Hey, you want to put your money in a comedy club? Oh.
Well, the investor was actually interested, so
yeah.
I was really close to it, but it was, just like the momentum was going down. The others were. All three of us really were kind of going back and forth between whether we wanted it, whether we didn't want it. And then, when Bjarni, the other owner here, when he, at one point he found this space and he just, at least the way that I was told it was he found the space and then he got the ability to set it up and get it going. And then David came in to get everything moving along and everything.
Yeah. He's a guy. He's the oil in the machine.
Yeah, he broke everything and then fixed it.
Yeah.
But then
he's like Facebook guys, break and fix.
Yeah, is it up? Who knows? But then I came into the picture because I heard that a comedy club was happening and I just wanted to be a part of it. I didn't care how I was a part of it. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be a part of it. And then Bjarni was like, all right, so you talk to David. He's going to hire you as bartender. Just needs to know, just needs to talk to you first. And I go to David and I'm just like, yeah, so basically I've worked at Lebowski. I worked at Bjarni Fell. He cuts me off and goes, I don't give a shit. Yeah. I'm like, what? He goes, dude, I can teach you to pour a fucking beer. I don't care if you can pour. Can you talk to me? Like, do you have communicational skills? Can you talk to the customers? Can you make them laugh? That's what I'm interested in. I don't care if you can pour a beer.
Yeah.
And then it was just that moment right there, though, I was just like, dude, I want to fucking work here. I want to be a part of this, because if I'm working with that crazy asshole, I want to be a part of everything. And within a few months, it just David and I were putting so much into the bar that Bjarni just kind of, like agreed with, with the three of us that we would be partners in this and that we would own it together. And it's kind of just been an insanely wonderful and stressful journey all at the same time.
Well, that's great. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Dan.
Hey, thank you.
Oh, perfect. So just to let you know, the Secret Cellar has shows every night of the week. We have shows on Monday, which is Bjarni the Magic Viking show. Tuesdays is the Funniest Four. Wednesdays, we have the open mic. Thursdays, we have My Voices Have Tourettes, hosted by Dan Zerin here. Fridays is the Not So Secret Friday show with Gisli Johan. And Saturdays is the Saturday Night Comedy Showcase hosted by me. And Sundays is Sunday Silly Sunday Shenanigans with Thorhallur Thorhardsson and Bjarni the Magician again. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. We hope you come next week. See you later. Bye-bye.